All right, I think we've joined the phone line. Sorry about that. We've had some phone issues here on our end. Can one of the other organizers just let us know? Can you hear us right now?
Mitch, this is Dave. We can, yes.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Okay, we're ready to rock. Sorry about that. We apologize for the delay. So one more time before we kick this off, if you do intend on asking questions at the end of the webinar, just be sure to enter your audio pin, which is provided to you, and we'll get to your questions shortly. So with that, Dave, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to you.
All right, Mitch, thank you. Hi, everyone. This is Dave Ferens. I'm a customer experience advisor with Oracle, and I focus on the customer service aspect of the overall customer experience. And today, I'd like to thank our partner, Helix Solutions, for setting up and putting on this webinar that's going to help. What we want to help you with is we want to help the banking industry think about how to acquire more customers, how to retain more customers, and do it more efficiently. And with that, I'm going to introduce the panel today. So first will be Travis Cottom. He's the VP of Business Development with Helix. He's going to take us through some ideas on things you should be thinking about. And then Adam Luff is going to talk. He is a CX strategist and principal consultant with Oracle. Adam's going to specifically address the DOL fiduciary ruling and how that might affect the banks today. And then Jason Coda is the Compliance and Solutions Director for Policy Automation at Helix. So with that, Travis, let me hand it over to you. Thanks, everyone, for attending.
Great. Thanks, Dave. And thanks for everybody that was able to join today. I'm based here in Montana and on the road most of the time, so it's good to be home for a week and do this over the phone. And I think we're going to get some snow here tonight, so it's a nice welcome home. But so this is what we have on the agenda today. We're going to talk about disruption in the world and with technology. We're going to evaluate your industry and get into some thoughts about what's happening in banking and financials, the impact, the role that modern service can have on disruption. Growing the top line and growing the bottom line, and how you use modern service to do that. What this looks like, for banking, to identify who the customer is, the view of the customers, what modern customer experience, customer service looks like in banking and financials. We're going to get into compliance and regulation and solutions for that with Oracle Policy Automation, and we're going to go into some Q&A. And a call to action. With that, we'll get right into it. So just to set a little bit of vision in what we're talking about as far as disruption in the world, really, with technology. Uber, of course, is a great example. Uber, founded in 2009, has a $40 billion market cap. Hertz, 1918, only $8 billion. 46, $4.5 billion. They've done that in such a short amount of time with very, very little overhead. And there's a lot of these other examples you can think about. Airbnb, 2008, $25 billion market cap. Hilton was founded in 1919. They're only a $23 billion market cap. There's the blockbuster examples that, are out of business. So technology is changing our world. It's changing all industries. And there's a lot of industries out there and companies that really are trying to survive with all of this disruption. So, what does that mean in your industry? There's a lot of things that you can see and you're trying to react to. You need to find innovative ways to react to different compliance and regulations that are currently always a very hot topic, but you also need to use technology and modern service to understand and try and see around a couple corners and see what you can see. You have to see past the horizon and innovate and get ahead of some of this disruption in order to survive. A good example of disruption in your industry is Cabbage. Founded in 2009. Had 6,700% growth over 3 years. right? And there's other examples in your industry and more, competition, popping up all the time, different Quicken Loans and other organizations that have, very strong online presence, very low overhead, and nimble and quick to do business with. There's one more, something I want to talk about as far as disruption. This is a study, a Vicom study produced by the Millennials Disruption Index. The study was conducted over a period of 3 years, and the major outcome of this study is that the financial and banking industry is the most ripe for disruption. This study's outcome said that customers want to access their money and interact differently than they do today. They're looking for innovators in financial services. They want to have a modern experience. Customers' expectation is that they have the same modern experience that they have with retail, with other verticals, and they want that same experience, that same interaction. That's their expectation. They want to have that in banking and financials. Some even believe that there won't be a need for banks at all in the future. So now we're going to get into what we feel are the goals that matter. And I challenge that if you take a step back and look at your organization's goals, objectives, initiatives for the year, they more than likely roll up into one of these two goals. You need to be quicker and nimble. Have to drive operational efficiencies. Grow the top line, grow the bottom line. So what role does service play in your goals of your organization to continually innovate, change, and stay competitive? Well, the goal of service, the role of service, the goals that mattered with customer experience and customer service is first, delight your customers with minimal effort. This is identifying who that customer is immediately when they call in. What relationship level do they have with your bank? What do they own? Using that intelligence to also sell to them what may be products and services to offer, what products and services should they own. And then secondly, leveraging that intelligence, capturing that interactions, providing actionable insight from your frontline throughout the organization in real time. So being able to leverage the intelligence, the interactions, and driving actionable insight and results and sales and more product development, listening to your customers to grow revenue. So there's tactical service and strategic service. Ask yourselves, are you really looking at service to solve real business problems? You're listening to your customers. Are you using that data, what your customers are asking, to innovate and look around the next corner? Tactical service is very reactive. You have to have that reactive, service, but leverage that to try and be more strategic. Be reactive and provide a great experience being reactive, but take the next step to, leverage those interactions to provide, a strategic service and drive acquisition and retention and enable efficiency. This is delighting your customers. It's supporting and creating sales. It minimizes risks, and it provides executive decision making. So ask yourself where you fit in. Are you using customer service as the tip of the spear? Are you using customer service to really drive business outcomes? So what does more of strategic service or modern service look like in banking and financials? This is one example of a Service Cloud customer that has a start to providing a good experience. This means a dynamic knowledge base, leveraging all that knowledge you have in different repositories, making it searchable, findable, and using that knowledge across first to provide self-service for your customers, enabling multi-channel self-service, the ability to chat, maybe SMS and texting, email, of course, phone, but providing that knowledge at the point of action through any channel of choice. This both provides efficiency and creates a great experience, for your customers, knowledge at the point of action. But your customers are also your CSRs in the contact center. So a dynamic, usable knowledge base for your CSRs to be able to find answers quickly and drive that efficiency and a consistent, good experience to the customers through any channel. So another example of Service Cloud again on a website for web self-service. But there's different channels where you can search the dynamic knowledge base and for those customers to self-service. They can also interact through multiple channels, chatting. You can click on the phone and have a lot of different phone options. Getting that customer to the right place at the right time, and also leveraging that interaction, reporting on that interaction to also find, what else are they asking for? What else do you need to publish on your site to provide that self-service? All right, now we're going to jump into some of the latest compliance and regulation that are hot topics, and I'm going to transition this over to Adam to talk about this a little bit. Adam, it's all yours.
Sorry, I was idiot. I was on mute. Stupid man. Okay, so you can hear me now, yes? Yes.
We can, loud and clear.
Outstanding, yes. So, Department of Labor fiduciary ruling. I think as I've been studying this for the past few months, a lot of the big boys, the E-Trades and the Ameritrades and some of the bigger banks, they're thinking, the election's going to come around, we'll see what happens. And they were expecting it after, 2 weeks ago. They were expecting this to get repealed. Not the case. This is still here. So now I'm seeing a tremendous amount of scrabbling, because people haven't really done anything about this yet. But the point I want to make here is this. We as a company, Oracle, we understand what this is about. We see that April 2017 is a drop-dead date when you have to have your advice standards rules in place, compliance with those. And it's things like naming the right people internally that are going to police this, going to review this, but it's also having a methodology of how you're going to do this. And of course, technology lends itself to this perfectly. So we have a compliance platform that we've developed for this. I'm going to let Jason talk a bit more about that in a few minutes. But then after 2017, April 2017, towards the end of the year, you also will need to be compliant with the exemptions. So there's 3 different exemptions. There's BIC Light, Best Interest Case Light, which is really aiming at fee-based, so you can actually start charging your investors, so we can manage that. We can also, the second methodology is where I see an awful lot of our clients going to, which is the notion of robo-advising do-it-yourself call centers. So think about what that is. And so instead of picking up the phone to my Fidelity broker, I do everything online, okay? And that's where I see the industry is really going. And then the third is the BICE, Best Interest Case Exemption, which is where, this is where the whales is. So if you've got anybody who's an investor with you and they have a lot of money, asset under management, these are the people where you're going to have these very specific agreements in place, and you absolutely must track every interaction, not just phone calls, but everywhere they clicked on your website, so on and so forth. So that they're the very high level. These are the things that we see coming. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. I'm not going to go into too much detail because Jason's coming on in a few minutes, but here's the deal. We have a service compliance platform, and it's based upon a number of products that we sell. But here's the deal. It's scalable, so if you wanted, and I'm talking from experience here, I'm seeing certain accounts of ours go with just the basics now, which is just be able to do the policy automation part of it, which Jason's going to talk about. Right up to the other end, and I'm talking to E-Trade about this is they're actually going to revamp their whole customer experience in the retirement space. So point is, we manage this from either a tiny little piece of it all the way out to the larger market and customer. Next slide, please. So last point, my last slide is this. We have the service compliance platform in the middle. So we have the engine to manage this. Jason's going to talk a lot about that. We're Oracle. We know how to integrate into your back office, your system of records, and all these other things, data storage, document retention. We understand all of this, of course. But the question we'd also like to pose to you is not only would you need to be compliant with a compliance platform, but how are you going to propagate this out to your field? How are you, if you choose to do option 2, which is robo-advice, chatbots, web self-service, these things, how are you going to propagate this out to your investors? And that's really what we'd like to be talking to you about. Is we understand the compliance part of it. It's complicated. We got that. But how are you going to take this and propagate it out to your investors, your customers? Is it going to be a complete web self-service play? Is it going to be an interaction of a bit of web self-service, bit of contact center, so on and so forth? And that's what really we'd like to talk to you about. So now I'm going to hand this over to Jason Coder, who's on the phone as well. Next slide, please. So Jason is going to talk more about this. Is the engine, the policy compliance tool is the engine. So Jason, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks for joining today. What I wanted to do is walk through a couple of things that I think are by definition kind of embedded within OPA, and we can all see the information up on the screen. But what I want to have you walk away with is the idea of what policy automation can do. At the high level, what it really does is it enforces consistent policies across your enterprise and your channels. So your walk-in, your web presence, your call centers. It provides an accurate and consistent information set both to your internal CSRs as well as to your clients. What we've seen what that does is that provides a lot of confidence to your clientele, as well as the ability for them, if they shop another number, if they're looking for a different advice or they didn't like to hear that particular answer, you have the power via Oracle Policy Automation and your policy execution to be able to trace that decision back to the policies in every single scenario. So it's no longer, people no longer want to hear, oh, well, that's what the black box said and that's what's on my computer screen. You're able to define your policies, execute those policies, and then have a fully traceable and auditable linkage to those policies. And that's really what the idea is. As well as because we do work with natural language, we're a big fan of training and having the clients extend the solutions themselves. And that gives you a couple of different points. A, you own the solution, less cost, higher ROI. But what I found at other entities is it also allows you to put changes into production in a much more quality controlled and even more important, in a quicker time fashion. I ran into institutions that they know they've had a mistake, and that mistake may take, 4 or 5 days, 8 days, maybe a week, in some bad instances, a couple of weeks, because they have to go in there and code something. They have to quality check it. They have to check the downstreams and upstreams effects of those changes. Whereas policy, because you extract those policies into Oracle Policy Automation, we've seen a great turnaround in being able to get those policies and corrections into production in case there was a misinterpretation or something of that nature. Now, the idea behind that is that in adjudication processes, intake processes, not only do you have the consistency, like I mentioned, but you have a much better way to help define how a regulation or a policy is going to affect you. One of the things that I think is the most powerful part of Oracle Policy Automation is its what-if analysis. Because we can run in real time, we can understand the impact of a potential legislative matter. So a lot of times, given, whether it be your state governing body or, a financial body or, the U.S. government, a lot of times you kind of understand what these policies might change to. What you can do is change the rules, run it against your actual database, and then determine, and this is a very good tool for managers and executives, determine how that's going to affect you. So if the mortgage rate drops, well, how does that affect your population? Does it mean that I can put on a campaign for the people that wanted a mortgage loan that didn't qualify that now do qualify, you can do that with good policy automation, because those tools and those rules always trace back to the policy, but you can attach them to different databases and different database elements, doing kind of a what-if case scenario and track those. Next slide. What we found in the financial services industry is that they also, those types of capabilities, help you onboard risk scoring, identification, quoting. Again, very consistent quoting. I've worked with a couple of insurance agencies where they had a hard time because there was different rules, even sometimes by county, and let alone by state. So you have a lot of different products you want to offer, whether it be credit cards or something of that nature, that you want to make sure that you are offering the right product to the right client, given the local, let alone federal or national mandates and things of that nature. The adjudication part is also a very, very key thing that we can provide. If somebody, wants to do a post-determination inquiry and felt that they weren't given the correct answer, you have a complete audit trail in English, which was very helpful. I did a job for Defense Finance and Accounting System, of the Army's accounting system. And trying to get these policies and some things of that nature are very hard, because if you do a normal coding or C+ or kind of more on the technical side, you have to try to interpret that to legal. The nice thing about this is that we actually printed out the actual rules in English in a Microsoft Word document, and we got things approved to be able to enact, but it also gave that particular institution a wealth of information given a complaint or a post-determination inquiry, to where a lot of institutions sometimes, they go to different avenues, or they, given the litigious nature, they kind of throw their hands up because they cannot trace what happened. Needs analysis, again, very good at regulatory compliance. The last thing that I think is very unique about OPA is we have a built-in thing that we call TBR, which stands for time-based reasoning. A lot of financial institutions, policies change over time, and sometimes you might have an inquiry that is, about something that happened 6 months ago. And instead of creating multiple rule bases, what you can do is have one rule base that then is consistent over time. So if you have a policy that, say, kicks in June the 30th in 2017, you can already have the tested already in your protection environment, and therefore when June, based upon your server clock, when that time hits, what will happen is that it will automatically invoke those new rule sets. Very, very effective in managing things over time. So if you have a CSR or telephone and somebody puts in and they want to look at an inquiry that they did 6 months ago, the CSR doesn't have to fight with, well, what rules apply now versus then. They'll be able to retrieve that information and know exactly what rules were fired at that point in time. So that's one of those things that are unique. Those are really the high-end level things that I've seen out in the industry, where automating and executing consistent policy across the enterprise and be able to understand what decision was made at what time against what policy set has been very beneficial. And then Travis, I think you take it from here.
Thanks, Jason. Very good. So our recommendations, is to get started with a componentized strategy and identify where the biggest, where the biggest impact, quickest to implement, component is, and get started. Knowledge at the point of action, make that tribal knowledge into common knowledge for your CSRs, but also provide some deflection for your customers, and so they can service how they want to be serviced. Provide that 360 view of the customer. Who's the customer? What do they own? Where are they at in their banking life cycle? What do you want to offer? What do they want to buy? So really leverage that, and leverage that intelligence to innovate. Start with get started and see that ROI, and then start getting ahead. The policy, there's obviously a lot of opportunity there. So with that, As far as our call to action, if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one and learn more about, some more personalized, product and demos, we can come in. I can show you the framework as far as the assessment that we go through, provide findings and recommendations, a phased approach with ROI numbers and costs, and help you along that road to modern experience and to innovate. So with that, we'll open it up for any questions. Mitch, do we have any on that have been chatted in?
We don't have any in the chat column yet, but what I'm going to do is open up the phone line so that you'll be unmuted. So if you have any background noise or anything like that, just be aware that you'll be unmuted here shortly. If there aren't any questions, be sure to follow up with us with any of these channels on the screen right now. We'll be happy to answer questions one-on-one if you prefer to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute it, and we'll go from there.
Is that a cry out for typing class?
Very vigorous typing.
So if I have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
If you can help me understand what, and it's Michael Keltner from Scotiabank, what are some of the key steps that you go through with your clients to help determine what works best for policy automation, and then what steps the financial institution needs to take in order to ensure they're prepared to make that change?
Great. Jason, I'll let you take this one as the policy guy.
I think there's a couple of key elements. The first thing is understanding, what policies you're actually executing, right? What I try to do is identify a pain point within your policy structure, and then we work with your subject matter experts and your management team to actually do a pilot. I'm a big fan of pilots. OPA lends itself very well to that agile, build something, get it into, a pre-production phase. So when we do that, when we find a policy, whether it be compliance, or whether it be an onboarding or a risk scoring, or even consistency with validating people's addresses, how does that work? Why do we have to do things manual? I'll try to work, the team tries to, works with your team and finds out kind of a pain point, and then what we do is we'll model those policies, execute those policies, and actually start running through how they would benefit you. And that way we kind of understand not only your internal processes, but also work with your team to find out, what's going on, where are the troubles. We also find that during that process also finds inconsistencies, which will help the institution understand that, I might need a better training component, or we might want to rely a little bit more on, rule bases and things like that, because John's interpretation is not the same as Martha's interpretation, and we're getting bad information out there. So that's really my goal starting out a policy automation. The more documentation you have around these policies, some of them come from state or federal mandates, those are very, we model those very, very quickly. And then what we would do is then apply them to your organization based upon how you execute those policies. And then that's really, kind of where the work begins of finding out, where the gaps are, how we can assist you, things of that nature. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. What, I don't know if anyone else has questions.
Nope, I would say go ahead.
Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges you find that companies run into when they're looking to automate a policy or automate like contact center resolution?
Yeah, usually it's inconsistency of that one determination that I had mentioned. It's usually either not well documented or not well understood and consistent across. So you take a customer service center, and they have notes or information sets. The first thing that we see is sometimes they have outdated policies for whatever reason and didn't get consistently to all the people that are replying. And then it's that interpretation. right, that interpretation, because you might have new trainees, you might have somebody that's been with the company for 20 years, you might have a large delta in your channels to your clients about how they're providing this information. So what we see, and I'll pick on my friends at the IRS just for a minute because everybody knows the IRS. So sometimes what people would do is say, call into the call center in Florida. Well, they didn't like that answer, so they called into, the Michigan call center, and they would find different information sets, and then they would use those information sets against, that institution to prove a case or to, make their argument. It's really about that consistency across the enterprise, but it's also consistency about how, those two individuals really interpreted that policy. Oracle Policy Automation can help do that. And I think that really gets extracted to, we work with those people so they kind of own those policies. A good example would be, again, the IRS, where they have an office called the Rule-Based Program Office that runs about 150 applications at the IRS. If anybody calls in or walks into an IRS location and asks about an IRA or, the dental supplement, or, who do I have to file, you're running an OPA rule base. And that understanding really gives a lot of power to the people that are in charge of compliance and regulation within the institution, because they start to understand that these are the changes and these are the deltas, because it's very hard. A lot of times what we see, there's like a 125-page manual or policy or, tax law or regulatory document. Well, what we can do is we can extract the logic out of those documents and make it much more maintainable and easier to digest about the people that within your institution are going to deliver those policies. Because in that 129 pages, I can guarantee you there's only about 3 to 4 pages of rules. And if you model those correctly and consistently, you're going to be in a much better position to not only defend your decisions and not only be able to trace those decisions, but you're going to empower your team to better understand why you're making the decisions that you make.
Okay, cool.
Great, Jason, and this is Travis. I'll comment. And this also goes for any process, really. It's a matter of getting in there and defining the as is and the to be, and really using that as an opportunity to drive a lot of optimization, to standardize and drive consistency, and therefore, of course, a lot of efficiency. So we go through those mind mapping and design phases to provide that that end result that we are then going to go and build. So. Thanks for the questions. Anybody else have any questions? All right. If there are not any more questions, really appreciate everybody joining today. Again, feel free to shoot us an email, shoot us a text or a call. Of course, we eat our own dog food, so to speak. We use Service Cloud as our platforms to engage with our customers, and we'll track all of your interactions and respond back to you through any channel and provide a good experience. So thanks again for your time today, and we'll see you next time.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.